Hi, everybody. So, this is really going to be fun. We are here to talk about the latest episode of Doctor Who. This is the 7th episode of the 10th season, and it is called The Pyramid at the End of the World. And my friend Jonathan is here to discuss this with me. You want to say hi?
Hello.
Yeah. So, this one came after kind of a very big reveal, kind of. It's not really a two-part episode, but it's definitely carries over quite a bit from last week's episode. You want to kind of recap what we learned last week about the Doctor and about Missy and things like that?
Well, last week there was sort of two stories going on. One of them was the Doctor and Pearl and Nardole find themselves in a computer simulation where some alien monks are trying to figure out how best to take over the world. So that was the main storyline, but there was also another storyline with the Doctor and Missy in the past where Missy is going to be executed and the Doctor saves her. And now Missy is apparently living in the vault underneath the school. I think that's where it was held.
Mm-hmm.
We're not completely sure how that happened, but that's about what we learned last week.
Yeah, and the Doctor made an oath that he would guard her for 1,000 years. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, and the Doctor's also blind, and he has not told Bill yet that he is blind.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So it was interesting to me that I started out this episode when I was about 15 minutes in. I was like, ugh, I hate this. This is awful. And then it kind of won me over by the end. I can't even explain exactly why I was so turned off at first. There's just a certain kind of storytelling where I feel like I'm being kind of manipulated and being kind of tricked, I guess, for lack of a better word, that really irritates me and I don't like. And I call it, it's sort of Shyamalan-ish. And that's how I felt. And I started to feel that sort of tension of don't do that.
I kind of felt the same way through the whole thing. I was like, something is going to happen. Something is going to be revealed as not being true. I was kind of surprised that everything was actually happening because I thought there was going to be some other reveal, like the monks were manipulating them again.
Yeah.
But no, apparently they're on Earth and being evil.
I thought that there were sort of enough moments of heart that it kind of won me over, but it's sort of like, I don't know, just it's just like you get this resentment of feeling like you're being that the director thinks you're stupid. I think that's part of it, is that that's what makes me frustrated in movies like The Village or Lady in the Water or something like that, where it's just like Shyamalan thinks that we're all dumb and that we've never seen another movie before. And so we know, and so then I just get sort of resentful and frustrated. But that's just me. I know a lot of people love this. Everybody just has styles and films that work for them. So I ended up feeling kind of neutral about this episode. But I started out really not liking it. So you weren't a big fan of this one?
I wasn't as big a fan of this one as I was of the episode last week, but I didn't hate it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So let's kind of talk about some of these things going on here. We start out with, we get some backtrack of what happened in the previous episode. And we see Bill with her friend, her girlfriend or whatever. And this is because we had seen the simulated version and now this is the real version. And Bill is trying to explain all this to her friend. And she ends up with the secretary of the UN storming into her apartment, and they say that they're looking for the president.
Hmm. I actually, last week, I didn't find it as funny as I think the writer thought it was going to be to have the Pope bursted on their date. But for some reason, I found this a lot more funny. Maybe it's because it's building off the last thing, but I laughed when the Secretary of the UN burst in on them.
Yeah, it was funny. I'm the reverse. Like, I thought the Pope was a little funnier just because of sort of some of the religious awkwardness was kind of made it a little more funny. But still, it was still cute. And they have, I know a lot of people liked the jab at Trump. I wouldn't have voted for him. He's orange.
I laughed.
Yeah.
I when Trump was first elected, I sort of made a similar joke on Twitter. I said,
Yeah.
"Congratulations, America! I'm so proud of you. He was the orange president."
First orange president. Yeah. No, yeah. So there you go. But anyway, so have you ever heard of the Doctor being referred to as the president?
Yes, there was an episode of a couple years ago where the Doctor, they were talking about, I think it was, you won't know who they are. The Cybermen were taking over the world, or no, it was either Cybermen or Zygons. Either way, it won't make any difference to you. The world was being attacked, and the people that the Doctor was working with were talking about electing a president of the world, and the Doctor was scoffing at the idea, saying it was the stupidest thing he'd ever heard of. And then they told him that he had been elected president of the world. So then he was forced into the role of leadership in dealing with the threat. So this is picking up that threat again. It's another threat on a probably equal scale with the last one, so they've decided they need the president back.
Okay. I never heard that one before, so that's interesting.
It's only been like 1-2-part episode that happened in, as far as I know.
Okay. And how many Time Lords, do we know kind of how many are on Earth? Is it just the Doctor and the Master, or are there multiple? Or
to our knowledge, it's the Doctor and the Master.
Okay.
Everybody else is gone, sort of.
Okay.
You'll see once you go back and watch the rest of them. There's a whole thing.
Okay. Good. All right. So he says, in times of unusual danger, the Doctor becomes president of the world, like you say. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we have this plot. There's dual plots going on in this, and it has a little person who is a scientist at an agro lab. Mm-hmm. And she has a colleague there, and I liked her. I thought that she seemed like a lovely person. I liked that actress.
At first I was really confused. Like, why do they keep cutting back to these people? They seem to have nothing to do with the story, but mm-hmm. I figured there was something going to happen that would tie it together, and it did. So, but I really liked her. Even when I was confused, I really liked her character. I wasn't sure about the other guy, and then he proved me right. He was kind of an idiot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. She just had a really nice smile, and she just seemed like a really cool actress. And props to them there was no need in that role to hire a little person. Mm-hmm. And I'm always a big fan of what I would call effortless diversity, when it just flows, that it's just like, it's not part of the story. It's not a big issue. It's just, mm-hmm. Here's this person, I like that. It shouldn't always be some big plot point that, oh, she's a little person. She's just a person.
I feel the same way. I always like it when there's some point of someone being different in a diverse casting or a diverse story point, but they don't point it out.
Yeah,
say,
exactly.
Hey, look at what we're doing. We're giving this person a job. I prefer it if they're there and nobody mentions it. It's just them.
Right. Exactly. I agree. And so that was cool. And I think maybe that's why I felt maybe a little bit, I was getting that sort of tension of because I felt like they were going to kill her or something like that.
I was so afraid they were going to kill her by the end. I was like, do not kill this person.
And so maybe that's why I wasn't as mad at the end as I thought I'd be.
No, I was
Oh,
afraid she would die, but I'm really glad she survived.
yeah, me too.
I'm
So,
hoping we'll see her again. I'm hoping
yeah,
she'll be back.
yeah, me too. I liked her a lot. She was really good. So we find out that the aliens have this spaceship that looks like a pyramid. And the aliens come and they have the simulation is like set up through these like columns of light.
Hmm.
And they say, let's see here, what did I write down? That we will take this planet and its people. We will be invited. We will run this people, but only when asked. So it's sort of a weird thing. What did you think about that? That they required consent to take over the world. It's a very kind of odd thing.
Familiar, but I don't know why it seemed familiar. It seemed like something like a story with magic would have, like a fantasy story, like a genie or something. Like they need to be asked in order to do something.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of genie.
I can't figure out where I know that from. It reminded me a little bit of in Adventure Time. There was a story with a bunch of vampires, and there was one of the vampires wasn't allowed to do anything unless somebody let him. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I don't think that's why it was familiar, because I feel like I've seen a similar story somewhere, and I could not for the life of me figure out why it seemed familiar. I don't know if you felt that way or not.
I I didn't. I felt like it was pretty novel. It was sort of a weird thing to like these aliens that they want consent. It kind of reminded me of like you couldn't go on the field trip, in school unless you had parental consent. Like I just
Okay.
I don't know.
That, but
I thought it was kind of a novel concept. This idea of that.
I think it is for Doctor Who anyway, because it didn't feel familiar as in something I'd seen on Doctor Who before.
Okay.
I felt like I'd seen something somewhere that had a similar angle. I don't know. I couldn't
Interesting.
figure it out.
Interesting. I can see that with the genie. I hadn't even thought of that. Kind of where you have to kind of invite the magic in a little bit. I can't think of any other examples off the top of my head, but it seems like there are kind of examples where you have to kind of give your consent, I guess, to the magic. But I don't know. It's interesting. I thought it's an interesting take, and the idea that like we will eventually kind of realize that what they have is better, and so we will consent, and it has to be like pure consent. That's sort of an interesting wrinkle of it. Like it can't be lying
Hmm.
in order for it to work, because you have these three leaders, these generals or whatever, and they give consent, but then the aliens touch them, like put their hand over their hearts, and they just disintegrate into sand,
Hmm.
which is interesting. So yeah, they make this like doomsday clock that things are going to end unless they get this consent, and they said they've studied this civilization and they are here now because they believe humanity is at its weakest. And so that's interesting. I mean, humanity's been pretty bad. Like, are we really worse now than the Holocaust, than the what's it called? Oh my gosh, my brain. The Christian wars in the Middle Ages. I can't think of the name. Crusades. The Crusades. There's been some pretty horrible times.
I think they probably wanted you to think that at first, but I think that their ultimate meaning was the fact that these bacteria were going to destroy the Earth.
Oh, okay.
Without their help in stopping the bacteria, Earth would be destroyed.
Okay.
I think
But they brought the bacteria, didn't they? Isn't it the fault of the aliens that the bacteria?
I don't think so. I think it was something that was cooked up in that lab that escaped.
Okay, it wasn't. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood that then. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, let's see here. There's like a light coming out of the pyramid. The doctor first tells the leaders to attack the pyramid, but it doesn't really work. And then let's see, and then we switch back and forth between the agro facility and the doctor in the pyramid. And let's see here, got that column of light. Let's see. And they do say also, we must be wanted, we must be loved. To rule through fear is insufficient. That's interesting.
It was interesting, and I'm not sure how they expected people to love them with the way they were acting.
Yeah, right?
I mean, you could say you couldn't expect them to love them with the way they looked because they looked horrible. But if they'd acted better, I think people could eventually get over the way they looked. But they weren't acting in a way that would make anyone love them. So
exactly.
I don't really know how they thought they were going to accomplish this goal.
Right. Yeah, I know. And to be able to get pure consent when they're, threatening and everyone's going to die. And yeah, exactly. You're right. And so let's see here. So then we get the plants in the airlock chamber of this bacteria, of this agro place that die. There's this bacteria that's very fast spreading. And you get the male scientist literally like dissolves. It's pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, wow.
It's kind of a gross effect.
Yeah, it was pretty gross.
It wasn't as horrifying as I was afraid it was going to be, but it was still kind of gross.
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of knew from the very beginning that he was a goner. There was no.
After he took off his mask, I was like, he's dead.
Yeah.
Everything he did told me that he was going to be dead real soon.
Exactly. I can't remember. So the doctor and everybody is debating about should they consent, and he gets the idea that he can kind of blind them and the aliens and give them a little bit more time, and the monks are sort of watching the lab, and so there's this whole scene where the doctor hacks into the lab, they turn the camera off, and that's how and then when they turn the camera back on, that's how the doctor figures out where they're looking at and where they're watching.
That was probably one of my favorite scenes of the episode because it was one of those big aha moments, like you know exactly what's going on and you realize the doctor's even more genius than you thought he was being. Just that whole thing was one of my favorite parts.
Yeah. Now, they bring the TARDIS into the lab, and then it leaves kind of, but Nardole is like knocked out by the bacteria, right? Or
yeah, he got some in his lungs that I couldn't figure out why they were going out without a mask, especially if they knew that something was wrong in the lab.
Right.
They should have been wearing masks. I mean, the doctor's probably going to be fine, but I don't know about Nardole. I'm sure he'll survive, but it still seemed kind of dumb that they let him go without a mask.
Because we didn't see him like recuperated at the end, correct?
No, he was still out as far as I know.
Yeah. And so they can't take the doctor, the scientist, in the TARDIS, I guess, because it's contaminated, or why can't they just but they end up getting, she ends up leaving, and she's able to leave the room, but he ends up getting kind of trapped in there, the doctor, and he can't, there's a special combination lock, and he can't enter it because he can't see because he's blind. So that's sort of, you're building. I did think that they pretty well built tension in this part of the scene in a way that was a little bit fun to me.
Yeah, it was pretty well written, and I ultimately liked how it turned out because they needed something to help them get to the next point of the episode. But I feel like the doctor should have just taken the TARDIS into the room to begin with instead of sending Nardole away with it.
Yeah, well, and doesn't the TARDIS go wherever you need it to go, right? And so why wouldn't? Yeah,
It's one of those things. It's if a writer wants it to do something, it'll do it.
fair enough. It's a Machina thing, kind of. Okay, so let's see here. He decides that they need to blow up the lab to destroy the bacteria. I guess I skipped, that was actually before he gets trapped in. And let's see. And then there's also, he's talking to Bill, and he says, strategy is not consent. And that's when the generals turn to sand. So I kind of skipped that. That was earlier. I said that earlier. But anyway, they turn to sand. So Bill's there, and they say to Bill, do you consent? Do you represent the doctor? And that's when Nardole passes out. And that's when the doctor finally admits, because this bomb that they made which that was a very MacGyver moment for the doctor, making this bomb.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of fun. But anyway, they're running out of time, and he finally admits to Bill that he is blind. And so I still think she's kind of dumb not to realize it, but I guess whatever.
There were a couple moments I was like, can't you tell something is going on here? I mean,
right.
He's done a very good job of playing it off, but still, I feel like at least by that point, you could have at least known that something was off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, and so Bill makes a deal with the aliens, basically, and says that if you help the doctor to not be blind, then I will consent. And that was a kind of a lovely moment of friendship, it's tense because obviously this is all happening, but the idea that Bill has such a love and friendship with the doctor that she'd be willing to do that was kind of a beautiful moment. I don't know. What did you think about that?
I thought she was going to get dissolved too. I was sure that they were going to dissolve her because we've seen. You haven't, but in the past episodes, there have been times where it looks like somebody's disintegrated, but it turns out no, they were just transported somewhere. And I thought that was going to be a case here.
Oh, okay.
I really thought it was going to seem like she was a goner, and then next episode we'd learn she wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I guess it worked. I still don't really understand why they thought that it was okay for her to consent when it was. Because they talked like they wanted humanity to love them, but I guess her love for the doctor was enough. I was not completely clear on that. I don't know. It worked, but...
Yeah, like she's like the representative of the doctor somehow.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying. And we get kind of another cliffhanger at the end. So the doctor is free, the explosion happens, the bacteria is gone. We do see that she didn't dissolve. They touch her heart, and the planet is now in the hands of these aliens, and evidently. So I guess the next one is called The Lie of the Land, LIE. And so we will see what happens next for these aliens.
I'm kind of wondering if they're going to have some other sort of simulation type thing going on with the title The Lie of the Land. Like, Are they manipulating people again? I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
And it's not a big surprise that this was written by our old friend Stephen Moffat.
Of course.
Because it does scream sort of his tendencies and his things. But I guess I felt like they created like real tension in some of the scenes, and I liked the people enough to warm up to the story a little bit more by the end than what had happened and at the beginning. And So I was willing to deal with, I guess, his manipulations, but it's still not my favorite kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
So,
It was okay. I didn't hate it.
yeah.
I didn't love it like I did last week, but I didn't hate it. It was good.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, if you were to give like a 1 to 10, what do you think you'd give this one?
Maybe a 6.5 or 7.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I'd give the same. So I'd give it like a 6. But anyway, they had some good moments, and I liked that doctor, the scientist. She was really good.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we will have to talk about. We've got 12 episodes in the season, so there's 5 more left.
Yep, 5 left.
So that's pretty exciting. They got a lot. I feel like they have a lot to cover in 5 episodes. Do you agree?
Yeah, because we all know where it's going to eventually end up. And I know a few plot points that have been teased, and I'm curious to see how they'll get there.
I kind of wish they weren't going down this whole sci-fi thing. I kind of wish I liked the more standalone episodes best. Like I liked the knock knock. That one was really fun. I liked as opposed to these sort of longer story thread.
Once we get back into the first few seasons, because I'm assuming you're still wanting to start at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
there'll be a lot more standalone episodes and a lot more episodes where the story starts at the beginning and ends at the end. The threads that hold everything together are a lot more subtle.
Mm. Yeah, Thin Ice and Knock Knock are my favorites of the season so far. Probably Thin Ice is my favorite.
I would probably agree, but I really liked Extremis too, so I would add that on there as well.
Cool. All right. Well, where can people find you?
Twitter, John J. North, Jonj North, like the direction, and I have a YouTube channel, which
Yeah.
I'll link to because I still don't have. I don't know when I'll get the handle, the youtube.com/something. I don't know how long that takes, but right now,
Okay.
Random string of letters.
Cool. Well, I'll put a link. I have a link in the description section to it. You guys should check it out. And yeah, so this weekend, as far as me, I am getting, hopefully that we get in, I should be able to be seeing Wonder Woman tonight, which I'm so excited.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and then I have reviews on Thursday for Captain Underpants. We'll be posting, which I'm really excited for you guys to see that review. And then this weekend, I'm going to try to do some kind of podcast on Wonder Woman. We'll see. My guest, Trevor from How to Love Comics, his schedule is having some conflicts, so we will all do the best we can. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on, and look forward to talking next week.
Okay.